3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Welcome to Mission Control, Peralta Design's podcast on all things branding and digital marketing. Since 2008, Peralta Design has launched hundreds of brands with award-winning identities and websites. Join our hosts Ramon and Jorge as they use decades of combined experience to tackle topics with past clients, industry partners, and the rest of the PD crew. At Peralta Design, we launch brands. But for now, let's launch right into this episode of Mission Control.
Hey everybody, welcome to Mission Control, Peralta Design's official podcast for everything branding, marketing, and entrepreneurship, where we respect the grind and reclaim the American dream. I am your host, Ramon Peralta from Peralta Design, and we launch brands. Today, I'm very excited to have someone I call a mentor, a friend, an associate, colleague, client, just an all-around good guy that's really doing his part in the community here. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Bing Carbone. Welcome, Bing.
Hey, Ramon. How are you? Good to see you.
Good. Nice to have you here, man. Thanks for making the time to be on the show.
Not a problem. I'm glad we could get to the office today after a big snowstorm yesterday.
I know. We, that's part of the deal here, living in New England. So, yep. But yeah, I'm super excited to have you on the show. You're doing a great job there running Modern Plastics. The theme of our show today is going to be, leadership lessons. I think that you're an outstanding example of a dynamic leader that's doing his part. But let's start out with give us the backstory, like who's Bing and how did you come to be to be running this company?
Well, yeah. So let me just start by saying who we are a little bit. So we are a 75-year-old business. Here in Shelton, Connecticut. We distribute high-performance engineering-grade plastics and also medical-grade plastic materials. These are plastics that get implanted in the human body for things like spinal surgery, knee, hip, shoulder replacements, etc. And we also custom fabricate plastics. This year we created also an infection control division with a host of PPE products, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a bit more. But I absolutely love what I do, and incredibly, I've had just one job my entire life, and this is it. I've never had to write a resume or go on a job interview, and hopefully I never will have to. If my boss is listening, I started my career at Modern Plastics when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I would always come at any school day that I had off, or summer vacation or holiday. I would get in the car with my father and brother and go down to Modern Plastics, and I would basically be sweeping the floors and working the machinery, learning the plastic materials, and doing whatever I had to do to learn the business. I kept doing that all my life, and just got better and better at it. And until I graduated from college in 1984, and that's when I became full-time at the company.
Yeah. Now, was there ever any doubt that you were going to take over the company one day? Was your dad, grooming you for this, like from day one, or did he ever say, if you really don't want to do this, you can do whatever else you want?
Yeah, that's exactly right. He never told me that I had to come into the family business. Mm-hmm. He was very good about that. He always told me to do whatever I wanted to do. He always told me that no matter what I ended up doing, that I should be the best at it, no matter what it was. But I love the business, and again, it was my grandfather that started it. A lot of family was in the business. I enjoyed it. I actually decided to go to school locally at Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut, because after school, during the day classes, I could actually just drive down Park Avenue, right down into the west end of Bridgeport, and go to work after classes. So I knew this is what I wanted to do, and I've been doing it now for well over 40 years.
And how much were you observing the leadership style? Like, how much influence do you feel, that you learned from watching your grandfather build a business to your dad to then you becoming a leader? Did you just kind of have a culture? Was there a culture that was already embedded at Modern Plastics that you just continued, or did you feel like that there was an era, the Bing era, that when you came in, you made some changes?
Yeah, it was kind of like the wild, wild west in a family business. It was a lot of craziness going on. And I learned from everybody. And I consider myself, I don't consider myself Bing Carbone. I consider myself a piece of a whole lot of people that I have met in my lifetime. And what I tend to do is I take a piece of the good that I see in everybody, the piece that I see that I like, that I can develop, that I find useful, and I incorporate that in myself. And there have been a lot of people like that in my life, and that's kind of who I've become. During a family business, you have a lot of crazy times, and there's arguing, there's fighting, who's the boss, and why are we making this decision, and why are we doing it this way, etc. We had a lot of that. And when I came out of college, I was pretty strong-minded, and I had certain ways that I felt the business needed to be taken in a certain direction. With a father and a brother and 3 sisters in the business, I kind of had to bully my way through to see things the way that I felt things needed to get done. And we changed a lot of it. For example, my grandfather started the business basically as a glass company. Okay, so that was back in 1945, really before plastics was around much, and that continued well into the 1980s. I didn't particularly like the glass business. I was fond of it. I worked in the glass part of the business for a long time, but I felt it was a dangerous business. I didn't feel the profit margins were where they needed to be. I didn't particularly care for the customers we were serving at that time either, and I felt the direction of the company needed to change. I felt we needed to take on higher quality products. I felt we needed to improve our quality standards. I felt we need to improve the quality of our customers and the reach of our customers, because we were basically a local company, a Connecticut company, serving parts of New England, but I felt we could do a lot more. And to this day now, we are serving companies all over North America, but also international business is a big part of our business. I don't know how many companies are shipping daily into China, but we are, and we're doing it flawlessly. So I'm very proud of that fact of how this company has evolved. So I ended up getting rid of that part of the business. There was a lot of reluctance because it was a traditional part of our company, and really switched gears. We're a high-end company now. We're ISO certified to 2 different levels. We have quality managers on staff. This is a vastly different company than what we were, even 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to me because I do remember the State Street location, 20 plus years ago when I first met Dave Altieri. It was at that location, and you guys were prototyping and always seemed to be doing like cutting edge type work, even back then. So I can imagine where you've taken it since. And everybody hears that, well, that's how we've always done it, or this is how we always do things. And so that's a very common kind of challenge that leaders have. What do you think was you mentioned bullying your way through, but your approach to making those changes, is it best to just peel the Band-Aid and just get it and change, or did you implement changes slowly over time?
I think it's a combination of both. I think you have to be able to make some changes pretty rapidly, because sometimes these things can be very costly if they go on for a long period of time. In other cases, there are issues that have to be dealt with. You also have employees that have been at a company for a long time. They've done things a certain way for a long time. Family members are used to doing things for a certain way for a long time. And there's a delicate balance in making changes. But making changes and being adaptable is an everyday occurrence when you're running a business. So I don't find that hard at all. I come into work every day and I have a set plan in my mind of what I'm going to do and what I'm going to accomplish. But I will tell you, by the time I walk in the door and get to my desk, that whole world has changed. And it's completely upside down. So it's a challenge every day. But, listen, as leaders, what we get paid to do is deal with the complexities of being change makers to meet customer requirements and business conditions, which, as you know, Ramon, are ever changing.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's a typical day for Bing? Do you spend more time in client relations, or do you like to be like on the shop floor, dealing with the teams, in different departments and so forth, or a mix of the two?
My employers will probably tell you I'm a bit of a micromanager, and I probably am to some extent. I like getting my hands involved in a bit of everything, but I stay attentive that way to the business. I'm also a people person, and listen, what's really more important than your people here at the company, but your customers, because without customers, you don't have anything. You don't have a business. You don't have anything to come to. So, pre-COVID, I was always getting on flights and visiting customers and getting in my car and seeing people and calling customers, et cetera. And now it's a little bit different during COVID. I'm used to the Zoom calls. I'm used to picking up the phone. My daughter, I'll never forget, she was a little bit younger, and she came into work one day and she's sitting on my couch and watching me work on my computer. Mm-hmm. And I send hundreds of emails every day. And she said to me, she said, I thought you sell plastics. And I said, I do sell plastics, but this is how I do it, and this is how I communicate with people. Mm-hmm. So listen, it's a business about communication. It's a business about people. I think every business is about people, and that's what's important.
Yeah. Now, somewhere along the line, you were inspired to. First of all, you mentioned your daughter. I from what I see and what you've shared, being a dad is a super, important part of your life and something that you're obviously super great at. Where were you inspired to? Where did you find the time to be inspired to write the book that you wrote on leadership? Truthfully, I had a girlfriend a few years back, and, we would talk a lot about my day at work, and, we shared stories and about her job and my job. And, she said, Bing, you've got a lot of information. Mm-hmm. You've got a lot of stories. You've got a lot of valuable insight. Mm-hmm. She said, maybe you should put together a book and talk about it. And I said, you know what? That's maybe not such a bad idea. And I started to write. I'm used to writing. I'm actually an expert gardener, and I wrote a garden column for 28 years for the Connecticut Post newspaper. So I'm used to writing. And it took me about a year to write the book. It's called The Positive Leader with a High Impact. And it was a struggle. It was a struggle putting everything down into words and everything that I wanted to say, and writing it and rewriting it and editing it and all that sort of stuff. But when I finally got done with it, I was pretty proud of it. And it's up on Amazon, and it's sold quite a few copies. I'm very proud of that. And it's a bit of a legacy, if no one else, at least for my two daughters. So in that regard, I'm very proud of it. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm working on a book myself, and I I've read yours, and the chamber gives it away to their chamber members, and it really it's a good. Some people call them glorified business cards, because they legitimize you as a businessman, but really there are a lot of good nuggets of wisdom in there, and so I'm grateful that you actually put that together.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And it's something to be proud of, and I think anytime that you're working on a book yourself, and it's a huge accomplishment. Once you finally complete it and get that thing published and online, it's really something to be quite proud of.
Yeah, awesome, man. And I always wondered, like, why does it feel like I've known Bing for much, much longer? And it's like we share that. We're both alumni of the Connecticut Post. I used to be an illustrator there. I worked in the composing room right out of college. And I remember seeing your column. I had no idea that you were also the president of a company. I just assumed you were just a gardener or some guy out there that just likes planning things. And now I realize that you're a man of many talents, because you're, the gardening thing, before we move on to some of your other skills that I definitely want to get onto, but where did that come from? Tell us a little bit about the passion there. Is this something that you took up one day as a hobby, or, was it in your family? Do you have a garden at home?
Yeah, so very close to my grandparents, both sides, Italian on one side and Slovak on the other side. And they both had gardens, very different types of gardens. And my mother knew that I enjoyed visiting their gardens, and she one day bought me a book. I was very young, called 10,000 Questions on Gardening Answered. And I was probably 7 or 8 years old. I read the book, and I just became very interested in it. They were able to get me a small plot of space where I was able to have my first garden when I was probably about 10 years old. And I think from that age, ever since, I've been having my garden and flowers and vegetables and shrubs and lawns and all that kind of good stuff. I live in an apartment now, so I really can't do much anymore, but I do miss it. I enjoy it, and it's just been part of my life. So that and playing the bass guitar is also part of my passion too.
Man, so I didn't know you played the bass guitar.
Yeah, bass guitar player. I also started the drums when I was about 6 years old as well. But then realized, if you want to meet women, you kind of got to get out in front and sing a little bit, and you got to get the guitar, so you got to get out in front a little bit. So that's when I picked up the bass guitar.
Nice. You're a true Renaissance man. You got all these things going on. They already, one thing that I keep hearing is the patience, and that's something that I struggle with. I'm a high D. I like to just put out fires and get things done, and I think of gardening and the patience that you have to have. Is there a meditative side to all this too? Is it a therapy for you to do the gardening and maybe even the music on the guitar?
Well, I think when it comes, and you can kind of relate it back to leadership a little bit, I think you hit it right on the nose, Ramon. My method relative to leadership is patience. Mm-hmm. It's listening, it's empathy, it's consideration. I certainly try to treat everybody with kindness. And in the end, hopefully I'm making the best decision. You can't be wishy-washy either. Decisions need to be made. I listen to my staff. I seek the best advice. But you got to study the situation. But then I don't waste any time, mm-hmm. and I have to go with my decision. And I think some of these hobbies of mine, kind of translate into my leadership skills. It's hard to run a business, for example, by committee with so many varying opinions. Mm-hmm. Things will never get done. I learned that part in the family business aspect. Sometimes I strike out. I think the majority of the time, I think I get things right. Mm-hmm. I've been making decisions and managing people in this business for over 40 years. If I haven't figured it out by now, I probably never will.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, do you rely on a executive board of some sort when you're making these decisions? It sounds like you stick by them. Does that mean that you receive input and then you make the final say for the most part?
Yeah, I think everybody has to have a group of people within their company, confidants, whatever you want to call them, key people, folks that they can go to and get candid feedback. Mm-hmm. Not the kind of feedback that is just kind of yes answers, right? But someone that'll say, you know what, Bing, that's a really crappy idea. I don't like it. I think it's bad. Someone that's going to come face to face with me head on and say, I don't like that. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes that's for leaders, leaders have big egos and they don't want to hear that kind of stuff. But I need feedback like that. I need candid responses. And thankfully I've got that within my company, people that'll, walk straight into my office. That door is always wide open. And I'll get that kind of feedback, and that's very valuable to me. But in the end, what it boils down to, it's my decision, and I have to come up with the right decision.
Yeah. Now, for me, I think one of the biggest challenges has been, like, I'm super grateful for the team that I've built, but it's so hard to find the right skills and the right mix of chemistry. And so that once you have that team in place, you want to just take care of them, because you just, as a leader, you know how hard it is to get the right mix of folks. What advice do you have for those folks that are trying to scale their business or grow, or maybe hiring or building a team within a department? What's worked for you? Because over the years, Modern Plastics has grown, and we're going to get to talk a little bit about how you're even growing further. But what advice do you have from, like, how involved have you been on the hiring side of things, as far as building teams within your company?
I've been involved at every level on that, and I think that's my job. Mm-hmm. I am exceptionally proud, and I will say, of myself, of the team that I've built. Mm-hmm. And that's been my number one accomplishment here at Modern Plastics. I've got this into a position where I could literally sit back, put my feet on my desk, and do nothing. I mean, that's not what I would do, but I'm saying I built this team here so solidly with such great people that it's like a machine. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the leader's job, is to find people that are better than me, that are better than you, to run this business and to come up with vision and to come up with ideas and to come up with the next best thing. People that are smarter. And that's where I think I excel, in finding those types of people, hiring those people, and also keeping those people. Absolutely.
Like hiring people smarter than you, and then getting yourself out of their way so they can do what they need to do and what you
absolutely.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, that's something that I admire, and I can appreciate it, because I know firsthand how hard it is, and I think it's why I work so hard to treat the team as well as I do, because once you have that chemistry and you have that team, you want to make sure it keeps running,
absolutely
running well. So before I get into PPEs and the new opportunities that have come out this year, you and I share some positions on some community organizations, high school business advisory councils and things. As a leader, can you share why it's so important to you to just be so involved as you are in the community?
Sure. I mean, I think, first of all, that it's not only an obligation as a business leader, but it's your responsibility. It truly is. We are in positions to do things, to make things happen, to organize things, to put things together for the community, and to do them quickly. We have the wherewithal to do that, and I encourage all of my counterparts that I talk to do the same thing. And I know how active you are, and it's just something that it's just a good thing to do. And if you're able to do that, last count, I'm probably active on over 20 different organizations, committees, volunteer organizations, and board of directors, and business advisory councils, et cetera. And you know what? I enjoy every bit of it. And I especially enjoy mentoring a lot of the young people that are just coming out into the business world, and helping them get ahead, and giving them whatever advice that I can. If I can slice off a few years of frustration and aggravation for them and helping them get ahead, I'm going to do that.
No, absolutely. I admire that, and I think that's kind of what's brought us together a bit even closer, is because we share that passion for giving back. And the key word that you mentioned there was responsibility. I think those of us that have been blessed with favor and success, it's our responsibility to pay it forward, and you're doing that. I want to talk a bit about where Modern was at early this year. Like, what did you, before, this all hit, this whole COVID stuff hit like February. What was the vision for Modern in January? And how did that change, like, once this pandemic hit?
Okay, so I'm part of a larger company called North American Plastics, and we have a forecast meeting every year that I go to. I think last February was in Orlando, and I get my forecast, and it was with pretty moderate growth, as I try to do every year. There was some talk in early February. This virus was kind of going around. It was in Orlando. I think I went to Disney for a couple of days. There were no masks. There was nothing really going on at the point. But by the time I got back to Connecticut, all heck broke loose. Things were getting very serious. Our business was deemed an essential business in March, because we were deemed essential by the Department of Defense. We supply a lot of parts to the military and to the U.S. government for submarines and missiles and radar and things like that, and also the fact of our medical business for surgeries for people. So we were never in danger of being shut down, but we were concerned of whether the business was going to slow down or not. Mm-hmm. So I have a regional manager that I work with, and I'll never forget, it was mid-March, and it was on a Sunday, and we were discussing PPE and the shortages that were prominent at that time, and one of the big ones was plastic face shields. And we said, look, we're a plastics distributor. We have plastics. We know how to manufacture things. We know how to put things together. Why don't we go into the business of manufacturing these plastic face shields? And we both thought that was a pretty good idea. And he said, all right, you, Bing, work on the marketing aspect of it, and I'll work on rounding up material sources and raw materials and that kind of stuff. So that was on a Sunday at 2:00. I went on my personal Facebook page. I made a post that said Modern Plastics was going into the manufacturing of plastic face shields, and by 4:00 that thing went viral. It went crazy. I was astounded, and also by 4:00 we had an order for 500,000 face shields, and kind of the rest is history. We've been making them into the millions ever since. We have created an infection control division within our company with about 15 what I call COVID prevention products. We've actually opened a new location, manufacturing location in Derby, Connecticut, and hired 65 employees, producing about 1 million face shields a month. So it's been remarkable. It's been remarkable. There was a bit of guilt this year, that our company was doing so well while so many folks were really losing jobs and suffering, and food lines and all kinds of bad stuff happening to people this year. But I guess the bottom line for me was the fact that I knew in the end what we were doing were saving lives, and the phone calls that I was receiving and the voicemails I was getting, emails were absolutely astounding. I had doctors leaving me voicemails that are in tears, crying, thanking us, and you have to go back in time and remember how bad it was back in March and April, how scary it was. Mm-hmm. But crying on the phone and thanking me for doing what we were doing and changing the business as we did. So our business has changed, and it has changed forever at this point.
Yeah, clearly, you wasn't that long ago that plastics weren't looked upon so highly, with pollution and recycling and the oceans being filled with plastic, and all of a sudden you're saving lives. That's like a complete 180 from perception of the industry in general.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And if you just think about a product that's been around for a long, long time called plexiglass sheet, What a change that has seen this year. Plexiglass sheet is a nice product, and we've always sold our fair share of it. Over the years, it's kind of been a commodity product for us, and we've not had a lot of concentration on it. I asked our general manager, how many sheets did we sell last year? And he said, well, we probably sold about 100 sheets. And I said, well, how many sheets have we sold this year? And he said, we've sold tens of thousands of sheets. I mean, we have sold a lot of plexiglass sheet, and it's all for the physical barriers that you see in the Costco's and the BJ's and the shopping centers and what have you. You even saw the big plexiglass barrier in the presidential debates. Yeah. They're everywhere, and we're still making them. We're still making them. It's incredible. We just received a nice order for Walt Disney World for the Grand Floridian Hotel. They're installing more of these physical barriers in their lobby.
Yeah. Now, what is the connection there? I wanted to get to Disney in a little bit, and so I'm just going to pause it because I do want to come back to it because that's fun. But there was there a shortage of material at some point? That's how much this stuff's been selling, right? That it was hard to get.
Yeah, the lead times went up. Typically, if you place an order for plexiglass sheet, you're looking at 7 to 10 days to get material. If you place an order back in March, they were quoting deliveries in October and November. As I mentioned, we're part of a very, very large company, so we were in a pretty good position with our inventory to begin with, and we really never were out of inventory. We always seemed somehow to get product on our floor, so we were never caught short-handed. So we were able to serve our customers throughout the entire time. Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't very, very high demand throughout the entire summer.
Prior to this, what would you say Modern Plastics was best known for? Like, what was your top selling product pre-COVID?
Well, certainly for the last 20 years, we are known as a high performance plastics distributor, meaning plastics that go into aircraft, into rockets, into submarines, into people in terms of the medical grade plastics, not necessarily the low end materials, the commodity materials. We kind of drifted away from those products. Got you.
So one thing I want to touch on, because you mentioned Facebook posts, and I don't want that to go unnoticed because you are, obviously we just discussed of how your business pivoted or changed or changed your kind of product offering during the pandemic and how that's going to permanently change your business. And I think there's great lessons there. But as a CEO and as a president, what advice do you have for those CEOs and leaders that aren't as active on social media as you are? Because you're very active on it. You know how to use it. When you were running around donating masks to all the police stations and things, you were documenting it, you were posting it. You're just naturally good at it. So what advice do you have for people that are leaders of companies and don't really realize that they are the brand for their company, and they're shying away from social media because you've got a great way to use it?
Yeah, well, that's a huge mistake if they're shying away from it. I will tell you that. Listen, I'm 58 years old, and I will never be caught short-handed, relative computer technology or social media or anything relative to running a business. It's my job, it's my duty to understand these things and to utilize them to the best that I can. Listen, you're not going to see me dancing on TikTok, but I have TikTok, but I have a TikTok account. Okay. But listen, it's important stuff. And I do make regular postings, especially on LinkedIn. I think it's just very important to continue to market yourself. And listen, it's no secret, Peralta Design, your company has been instrumental this year in helping Modern Plastics. We put a lot of pressure on you and your company this year to help with the marketing of Modern Plastics. You've done a tremendous job for us. We appreciate it. So I would recommend for anyone that's listening, get yourself a good marketing company as well, because a CEO, a president of a company can't do it all himself or herself.
Thank you, Bing. And it's been great working with you and watching the growth and And we're always up for the challenge, but it's always great to work with great company like you. And in fact, what reconnected us was actually over a year ago, maybe a couple of years ago now, when you posted what your intern was doing with your logo on your Facebook. And I think we were connected through some car groups or some kind of car enthusiast group. We became friends, and I commented on the logo, and then you brought me back in. And we did the rebrand, and that kind of all set the stage for when COVID hit. We were already in place. We already had a relationship, and we were already doing business together. And so it's just, everything happens for a reason. And the use of social is so powerful for business leaders, because it's how you and I connected. And I can't understate that enough. I do want to do a bit of a speed round here. There's two things I want you to briefly talk about before I like you to share how folks can reach you, or how they can contact Modern Plastics, and what your ideal client is, and so forth. So Disney, you have a passion for it. Tell me again, so our listeners can hear, where does this come from? Because pre-COVID, it felt like you were there all the time, but they're also a client. So tell us where this passion for Disney came from.
Yeah, it's kind of twofold. Listen, I have two daughters. They're now 27 and 25, but we took them to Disney World when they were very young, and I'll never forget, our first trip was to the Polynesian in Florida. That's where we stayed, and when we were leaving, the two daughters were crying, and I said, we'll have to come back, and ended up getting a timeshare at Disney, and joined in with a lot of friends, and ended up going just like 2 or 3 times a year, and really just enjoyed it. The rides are just one thing, but I think what Disney has figured out, and I like Disney from a business perspective, and I think I've read every book about it. But what they figured out is that, listen, if we're going to, and Disney's not cheap, it's an expensive trip, mm-hmm. But I think what they figured out is, if we're going to get people to come back and visit Walt Disney World, we've got to make it really good for the parents. We've got to have top-notch resorts. We've got to have the best restaurants. We've got to make it very convenient and easy to get in and out. And they did a great job doing that, and they continue to do that. I love their business model. I've taken a lot of what they do, and I've applied it here at Modern Plastics. And guess what? I even made them our customer. So it's a great story. I still go back with my two daughters. We have a ball. We go to Epcot, and we have a drink around every country. I love it. We have a great time.
I love it. I love that part of you, man. I love everything. And the second piece to the speed round here is, you've all of a sudden become an artist. And I went to school for this. I at one point in my life, I wanted to be a painter, like wandering the streets of New York City with a canvas. I ended up having children and getting married, and so now I do paint, but not as often as you. You're like a machine. Like, how did this happen? Like, one day you just decided, I want to start painting, which I think is a great lesson in itself, of always trying something new and getting out of your comfort zone. But what inspired you to start painting and making these incredible paintings?
Yeah, that's really weird. I don't know how this thing started. So, Paul McCartney is one of my idols, and, Paul being an artist as well as a bass player, I said, maybe I can try my hand at painting a little bit. And I was very bored during this whole COVID period, as a lot of people were, and not much to do. So I actually bought an easel and some brushes and some acrylic paint and canvas, and I set it up here in my office. And at the end of the day, or even between sometimes phone calls, I get it from my desk, and I would start to paint. And I actually have a gallery. I have a wall here that probably has about now 30 paintings that I've created. And just for fun, I kind of put them on Facebook. And it was kind of strange. What started happening is people would say, I really like that. Are you selling it? And I just become very embarrassed. I mean, I don't consider myself an artist, but when I step back and look at some of them, I really kind of like them, and I don't want to part with them. It takes a long time, as you know, Ramon, being an artist yourself, to create something. And during that process, you kind of become one with that painting, and it becomes a part of you. And no price, would make me part with that painting. It just becomes part of me, and it's here to stay. It's on the wall, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and you're framing these things, like literally painting it, framing it, posting it, and then people are like, I want to buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible.
Exactly.
Well, God bless, man. I love it. I love that you're always pushing, trying something new and being creative and just finding the time, because I'm sure leading this company during these times and expanding and hiring can be very taxing. But you're finding time to have fun, be creative, be a dad, so and still manage to help the community. So I really want to thank you for making time to be on our show today. There are a lot of gems that you dropped for our listeners. I want to give you this time to maybe plug something that may be coming up, an appearance, anything that Modern Plastics is up to that we should know about, or just what the best way is to contact you if somebody were interested in your products.
Yeah, listen, it's very easy. I'm very public. I'm very out there. So, you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. You want to connect with me on Facebook. You want to go to our website, modernplastics.com. My email address is bcarbone@modernplastics.com. It's also on the website. And my cell number is 203-414-1559. I take a lot of calls and a lot of text messages. So anyone has any questions or anything you want to chat about, give me a call. So there you have it.
Awesome. I mean, you're an open book, but you're just a giver, and givers gain. So I just want to thank you again, Bing. I look forward to our next double date when we can take the ladies out again. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed having you on the show today. Again, thanks for being on here.
Thank you, Ramon. It was a pleasure.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Mission Control. Until next time, this is Ramon Peralta from Peralta Design, and we launch brands.
Thank you for taking this journey with us. To learn more about Peralta Design and our work, go to www.peraltadesign.com and subscribe to keep up with the crew.